This video is about questions that you should be asking yourself when you budget. You're watching Boss Your Money with Anthony. Before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and bang that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let's get straight into the video. The first question that you should be asking yourself when you budget is, do you have any expenses that are not regular? And what I mean by that is, if you're preparing a monthly budget, make sure you include expenses that are not monthly. If you have an annual rent payment, please include that. If you have an annual insurance policy, please include that, and so on and so forth. I noticed that a lot of people, when preparing the budget, they only think about the coming month. They only think about the next month. They don't think about the year as a whole. And so then what happens is that the last month, when you have to make these bulk payments, you will face a lot of issues because all of a sudden you have not budgeted and set aside funds that go towards that bulk payment. The second question that you should be asking yourself when budgeting is, are you investing in something? Are you saving? Are you setting aside funds for something or the other? And if your answer is yes, then you need to make sure that that investment or saving is also budgeted as an expense. And I mean to say that when you have a total of your income for the month, what you need to do is actually remove all of your outgoing payments from that. And that can very well include your investment payments as well. Again, I've seen a lot of people make this mistake. When they think about budgeting, they are only thinking about income and expenditure. And the problem that arises is that if your income is 10,000 in whatever currency, doesn't matter, this is just an example. But if it is 10,000 and your expenses are 9,000, you tell yourself and you think to yourself that you're absolutely fine. You might not include a payment that is going towards your investments or an annual payment or whatever it is that might be valued at 2,000. And once you realize that that is there in the current month, then all of a sudden you're stuck because you haven't budgeted for it in the previous month. The third question you should be asking yourself is, if you do have additional expenses at the end of the year, or if you have bulk payment that's coming up, then you need to most definitely plan well in advance at the time of budgeting as to how exactly you're going to allocate it and where you're going to set it aside, so that you don't touch it and use it by mistake. Make sure that is very well documented in your budget so that you're able to actually stick to it. The fourth question that you should be asking yourself is, have I stuck to my previous month's budget? Because if you don't ask this question, then you are not reviewing your previous budgets. And if you don't review your previous budgets, then you are not able to comprehend whether you have stuck to your budget or not. So it is very, very essential that you actually go back every single month and ask yourself, have you stuck to your previous month's budget? The next question that you want to ask yourself when budgeting is, am I making this budget a little bit too overcomplicated? You want to keep things simple. Keep your incomes 1, 2, 3, keep your expenses 4, 5, 6, keep your savings and investments 7, 8, 9. You have to have a very simple, easy to understand, easy to look at, easy to read budget, so that once you look at it, you don't feel overwhelmed and you don't skip over a lot of important aspects of budgeting. The next question that you're going to want to ask yourself when budgeting is, are you setting aside enough money for emergencies? If your answer is yes, then very well. If your answer is no, please make sure that you actually budget for some backup expenses. You always want to set aside some funds towards your emergency fund. Always, always, always. Don't think that you can start from tomorrow or from the next month or from the next year. Start immediately, because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to stick to your budget if you have an emergency. The final question that you're going to want to ask yourself when budgeting is, are you actually budgeting enough for your variable expenses? Let me give you some examples. You might have allocated 200 dirhams towards your fuel expenses. But let's say that you decide to take a long trip over one of the weekends in the upcoming month. Then that is really going to dent your fuel expense budget, because you are obviously going to be spending way more in that specific month towards your fuel. Likewise, if you take your utility expenses, your monthly average might be 350 towards your electricity. However, one specific month, let's say that you have guests over and you have your water heater running all the time, your AC is running all the time, your fridge is working extra hard, you might see a little bit of a spike in that month's electricity bill. And if that's the case, and if you haven't budgeted for that, then you are going to have to take that hit for that month. So my recommendation in such a situation is to always budget for 10% more than your monthly average for every single expenditure. And at the end of the month, if you haven't spent that extra 10%, put that little bit of extra savings towards your emergency fund or towards a separate savings account or whatever it might be. You do not have to go and spend that money, but every once in a while it is okay to go and splurge a little bit, so you're not completely constricted by a very strict budget. Also, as I've said in my budgeting videos a lot in the past, please also make sure to have a separate budget item just for your recreational expenses, where you can actually spend a little bit of money just on yourself for your entertainment and for your relaxation and so on and so forth. Make sure you do all of those things, and I'm sure your budget will most definitely be successful. If you have found some value in this, please don't forget to bang that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and don't forget to subscribe as well if you haven't already. And if you don't want to subscribe, please let me know in the comment section as to why you don't want to subscribe, so that might help me improve my future videos, and after watching that you might be more inclined to subscribing to my channel. Also, another thing that you could do is check out some of my other videos, and if you find value in those videos, then you could probably subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.